All right, welcome. My name is Todd Stonley. I'm the Assistant Director at the Utah Division of Water Resources, and I'm happy to welcome you here tonight for this water talk and discussion about the State Water Plan. Before I turn the time over to our State Water Plan Manager, Stephanie McGinnis, I thought we would introduce the staff who is here to help support us today. Stephanie McGinnis is our State Water Plan Coordinator. She's spearheading our State Water Plan effort. We have Scott McGettigan here. You're the section manager of. Okay. Yeah. So I'll let each staff member introduce themselves and who they are. Rachel.
I'm Rachel Shilton, and I am manager over the analytics and outreach section, and I am the area planning specialist for the West Colorado watershed.
Thank you, Rachel. And then downstairs we had someone manning the door because it's locked, so letting people in is Carly Payne, our watershed council coordinator. I'll go relieve her in a minute, so she'll be able to participate in the meeting, and then I'll be back later for the discussion, question, answer period. So anyway, thanks for being here. Water is a big deal in the state of Utah, as you know, better than most in this arid part of the state, and we have lots of issues that we need to address and things that are causing us strain and trouble and challenges that we are trying to rise to the occasion to meet. So these meetings, these water talks will help us get your feedback and thoughts of what's important to your area, what you think about the State Water Plan, what needs to be in there, and how we can help meet the needs that you have here locally as well as statewide. So we're grateful that you're here participating. This is one of the better turnouts we've had for these meetings, so we appreciate your time this evening and hope it will be a rewarding experience for you. With that, I'll turn the time over to Steph.
Thank you, Todd. And yeah, I just appreciate you all taking the time to join us this evening. It's not lost on me that there are a lot of other ways you could spend your evening. So we really do value you taking the time to join us to help inform the State Water Plan. I definitely want to say thank you to the West Colorado Watershed Council. They've already been really instrumental in helping to inform what we should include in the State Water Plan. So when we think about what are our challenges, what are our needs, and also what are our successes? I mean, I don't want to just really focus in on kind of the doom and gloom, but what are some of the opportunities that we have here locally? And so for this evening, I'll just have a short presentation. I really want to spend the majority of our time hearing from you all. I see these as listening sessions where you all can tell us what you would like to see in the State Water Plan and tell us what your concerns are when you think about water here at the local level. So we'll spend about 20 to 25 minutes on the presentation. Those of you that are here in the room, we'll do a little bit of a listening session. For those of you that are joining us online, you've probably already realized that you're unable to make comments or ask questions, but there will be a survey at the end of this presentation, and so that will be your opportunity to provide feedback. There also will be an email address, so if you'd like to reach out about anything specifically, you will have that opportunity as well. And I want to start out just by sharing what the Division of Water Resources mission is. It's to plan, conserve, develop, and protect our water resources. And certainly the State Water Plan, it falls underneath that mission. And it really does take just about our entire village at the Division of Water Resources to develop the State Water Plan. From our staff that are collecting and analyzing data, to our staff that like we have here joining us this evening to help with the State Water Plan public meetings. We have staff that are helping to write sections of the plan, but it's also bigger than just the Division of Water Resources. We are working with our sister agencies across the state to help inform the plan. We're working at the local level with, like I mentioned, the watershed councils. We're also working with the water conservancy districts. And we're also here wanting to hear from the public as well, and why we're holding these meetings in each of the 11 basins. And so for this evening, again, this will be a short presentation. I want to share with you what the plan is, and also I think just as important, what the plan is not. I want to talk about why it matters to you all, give you kind of that high level overview of what will be included in the State Water Plan, And I want to just share how you all can stay involved in the process. So not just tonight, but how can you stay involved through December of 2026 when we'll have this plan completed. And the purpose, when I think about the state water plan, a couple of things. We want to provide an overview of current water resources. And we also want to talk about what are the strategies and things that kind of these actionable steps at these different levels for the individuals, local and state, that can help us to address these challenges and also to help prepare us for future uncertainties. My hope is that the plan will serve as a strategic framework to support informed decision making by those that shape or manage or depend on Utah's water resources. We write this plan for everyone, for all of Utahns, but certainly, you know, one particular audience that we look for the state water plan is the legislators. So this is a really, to us, a very important document to get this information up at that level. And the first truly comprehensive state water plan was published in 1990. Water planning goes back much further than that. We've had 2 iterations of the plan since 1990. And it's really interesting to look at the focus of these plans as we go back in time. And to me, that just reinforces this idea that the water landscape that we live in, it isn't static. Our challenges, our needs are always changing. And so we see that as we look back through these plans. The first planning document, and again, this wasn't a full-blown state water plan, but this 1948 plan, this was focused on development, increasing storage, and getting water to where it was needed. The, excuse me, the 63 plan, this was still pretty focused on storage and moving water to where it was needed. And the 1990 plan, again, this is the first comprehensive state water plan. This is where we start to see a little bit of a shift in the focus. So there were entire sections that are devoted to water pollution, the importance of fisheries and other aquatic wildlife, as well as acknowledging water conservation as a necessary tool to manage our water resources. The second state water plan, this was published in 2001, and this plan, you know, I think we already knew this, but it just really addressed the fact that we live in a semi-arid climate, and we need to be recognizing that as we think about how we manage our water resources currently, but also, you know, into the future. And in the most recent plan, it acknowledges that we're seeing a change in our long-term weather trends. And so this will be something that we continue to focus on as we work on this 2026 state water plan. And as I just mentioned, you know, in recent years, we've seen an increase in the frequency and severity of drought. And this is a map from the US Drought Monitor, and it's a little hard for you to see the legend down there, but I'll just tell you that this is covering the years 2000 through 2019. And what it's showing you is the percent of weeks that each state spends in drought. And so to be considered a week of drought, at least half of the state must be in some level of drought. And so what you can't really see is, you know, Utah's not red up there, but it's the next level down. And what that's saying is that Utah spends about 40 to 50% of its weeks in drought. So for that 20-year period, about half of the year was spent in some level of drought here in Utah. And I think it's a little impossible to live in Utah and not have heard about the problems up in Great Salt Lake with the water dwindling. And certainly you all are aware down here of the concerns regarding the Colorado River and that dwindling amount of water that's available for storage. And this is a picture of Lake Powell back in 2021. And at the time, this was a new historic low. This was the lowest it had been since it started filling back in the 60s. And then the reservoir hit another record low the next summer and the next summer. Does anyone know what Lake Powell is at right now? I haven't looked for a couple of weeks, but I was down in Page, Arizona 3 weeks ago, and it was at about 26% of full capacity. So, you know, something to me, I don't think we can stress enough how important it is that we pay attention to what's changing and how it might affect our thinking on how we manage our water resources. And as I said earlier, I don't want to paint this doom and gloom picture because to me, from these challenges come opportunities. So developments in science and how we collect data, They can help us to better understand how we're adapting or how we can adapt to changing conditions and help us better manage our water resources. And this is an example up here. This is Airborne Snow Observatory, or ASO for short. And what this is this is aerial technology, so they can fly a plane over a large area, an entire watershed, an entire basin, and they can determine what the snow depth is across that entire area. And maybe more importantly, they can determine what the snow water equivalent, or SWE, is. So how much water is in that snow. You know, traditionally, we've obtained our snowpack information from snowpack telemetry or SNOTEL sites, and those are really great at giving us those point estimates. But something like ASO can let us take a look at that entire spatial area and get a better idea of how much water is piling up in those mountains over the winter. And the division is currently in a multi-year pilot study to determine if this sort of technology might be a good path forward for us to, you know, better understand how much water is in the mountains in the winter. And then before we move on, I think this is a good time to point out a couple of things that the plan is not. I wish it were, but the plan is not a guarantee of water. And the state water plan is also not a regulatory document. The Division of Water Resources is not a regulatory agency. But however, you know, when we look back, the recommendations in the plan, such as the 2021 plan, some of those goals and objectives, they do come to fruition. And from the 2021 plan, approximately 80% of the goals and objectives have been met to date. And as I mentioned before, you know, the legislators, they're a prime target audience for this plan. So it's really great to hear from you all and have you help us inform from the local level what you'd like to see in there. And then I also want to touch on why it matters to you all. I mean, water affects us all. Did any of you use water today? Carly's raising her hand back there. Carly, what did you do with water today?
I made breakfast.
All right. We've got the lights on that uses water. I know, I think when I'm looking around, you know, I recognize some of the faces in here, and it's, I think you can tell me more than I can tell you how important water is to our communities. So I want to start getting into the details of the plan. The plan will have a total of 9 chapters, and this evening we'll drill down just a bit into chapters 2 through 8 to give you an idea of what the plan will cover. So chapters 2, 3, and 4, I see these as the chapters that outline what the limiting or constraining factors are when it comes to how much water we have in our state and what we can do with that water. And then within those constraints, how do we support our watersheds and ecosystems, our communities, and our agricultural producers, chapters 5, 6, and 7. We'll also have a chapter that discusses the unique challenges and needs within the 11 basins here in Utah, as well as the unique opportunities or successes within those basins. So diving in a bit more, chapter 2 will provide us with an overview of Utah's water constraints. For example, we only get so much precip here in Utah, and that's what we have to work with. And the plan will explain how supply and use are measured, as well as provide a current water budget that details our current supply and use. And this up here on the screen, I know this is kind of a busy graphic, but this is an example of what we can do with those data and create this water budget. You'll see up on the top left, if you can't read it, on the very top left, it says diversions by basin. So that's water that's diverted from a water body for human use. And that's a key piece of information when you're managing water. On the top right, you'll see depletion. So that's the amount of water that's been diverted, and now it's been used. So it's not available for use anymore. And on the bottom, you see return flow. That's probably what you're expecting. That's water that was diverted, but now it's returned back to a water body. So these are all really important pieces of information. You know, we can kind of play around with this. We're hoping to do this for every single basin if we can pull it off for this plan. And I think that that'll be really interesting to see the differences among the basin there. Chapter 3, this will focus on the drivers of change that affects Utah's water supply and demand, such as changes in climate and population. Again, we've seen that more frequent and severe drought across the state. Although there's something really cool happening this month right now in Utah. Does anyone know what record we're setting? Yeah, we've got, is it the most in 150 years for October? Yeah, so, you know, just dealing with that variability. So how do we deal with these droughts, and then, just hope for these sort of banner rain years and hopefully snow years. But those trends, they can create some uncertainty for our water future. So we want to have a roadmap of how we prepare for and adapt to these drivers of change, so that our water future is looking hopefully more like the picture on the right, not the left. This chapter will highlight improvements in technology and conservation, how that can help us adapt to a changing water landscape, as well as how shifts in policy and management might improve our ability to adapt, whether that be at the state or the more local level. Chapter 4, this will focus on how water is administered in Utah. So we'll cover, who does what at the state, regional, and local levels. So that'll include state agencies like the Division of Water Resources, all the way down to the local irrigation companies. Each has a specific role in planning, developing, regulating, or delivering water. We'll highlight some of the key laws and agreements that shape water use in Utah, including interstate compacts that allocate river flows between states. We'll touch on water rights and allocation, including federally reserved water rights, which includes tribal rights. We'll touch on innovations in water administration, like the Unified Water Infrastructure Plan, or UWIP, that aims to improve coordination and funding for projects across the state. So again, within these sideboards outlined in chapter 2, 3, and 4, how do we support our environment, our communities, and our agriculture? So I want to talk high level about what will be included in the plan, but I also want to highlight some water resource challenges that are relevant here at the local level that have already been identified by the Watershed Council. So with chapter 5, we'll be emphasizing the importance of protecting our watershed and highlighting the services that they provide. Healthy watersheds provide a multitude of services, such as maintaining and improving water quality, increasing the ability to store water, and also help mitigate the effect of flooding. And healthy watersheds, they provide important habitat, which is a key factor in supporting and maintaining biodiversity. And healthy watersheds are a really great place to play. I imagine a lot of you take advantage of all the opportunities out there. And this is also really important to our local communities because this is a major economic benefit to many of them. We'll also address some major threats that our watersheds face. So pollution and invasive species are two major ones that we'll cover. Pollution has a multitude of sources and negative influences within a watershed. They can affect water quality for aquatic life and human use. And invasive species, both plants and animals, they can crowd out natives, disrupt ecosystems. They can affect not just the quality of water, but also the quantity. And one of the big problems with invasive species is once they've established themselves in a system, it's usually difficult to impossible to eradicate them. And now that can become an economic cost to these local communities. And this chapter will also highlight some management plans that are already in place to protect our native species, especially those that are working to protect our threatened and endangered species. And to me, really at the end of the day, without a healthy watershed, it's really hard for us to support our communities or our agricultural producers. So I want to move into the next chapter, which is vibrant communities. Clean drinking water, it's important to all of us. We want to support growth and development. We want to ensure that we have safe and reliable infrastructure. And these are all pieces that play into keeping our communities vibrant. So we'll cover the importance of long-term planning. We want to ensure that our economic opportunities are set up for success as we see an increase in energy development, especially geothermal and other alternative energy sources, and that we have a strategy in place to seize future opportunities like hosting the upcoming 2034 Olympics. We'll dive into the details of how we can better manage demand by growing water wise through the use of smart water technology, such as smart irrigation timers. We'll dive into all of the rebate programs and incentives and educational workshops that are available to Utahns to make water wise decisions. And we'll highlight the positives of metering secondary water connections, as well as the positives of implementing tiered water rates that reward conservation efforts. And as the saying goes in Utah, we're either in drought or we're preparing for the next one. So we'll outline how the drought response plan helps us to monitor and respond to drought in our communities. And just as how, we're looking at how we can better manage our demand, we'll also look at how we can expand and optimize our supply through planning for repair and replacement of aging infrastructure, development of new infrastructure, and implementing projects that focus on things like water reuse, aquifer storage and recovery, and water loss control. And then the final chapter that I want to touch on before we just kind of dive into those basin specifics, I want to talk about productive agriculture. You know, ag is a cornerstone of Utah's identity and economy. The state water plan, we want to support farmers and ranchers by identifying grant programs and other financial opportunities to improve operations, as well as identifying ways to use water more efficiently, all at the same time while we're preserving agricultural lands and traditions. So the plan will outline opportunities that are available through the Agricultural Water Optimization Program. This program, it makes really significant financial investments in modernizing the state's agricultural water systems. And they do this through a competitive grant process. And that funding is sort of strategically divided into two primary categories. So the on-farm projects, as well as the canal or irrigation company projects. So the idea is to really address that water efficiency at every stage of agricultural use. Conservation easement programs, we'll touch on that. These are voluntary legal agreements between a landowner and a qualified organization. And the idea is to permanently restrict certain types of development or land use in order to protect specific conservation values. And that could be anything from just preserving agricultural production to protecting water resources, protecting open space. And then another big one that we'll go into is the Agricultural Voluntary Incentive Program. And this is an incentive-based conservation program offered by the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, or UDAF. And the goal is to assist agricultural producers to manage cropland and pasture systems with implementing a variety of best management practices, or BMPs, to improve yield, improve water quality, build soil health, and there's other operational goals that might be a focus. So of course, we'll dive into those best management practices, or BMPs, and innovative opportunities both on and off farm. So with the off-farm projects, really focused in on that conveyance and measurement, and on-farm, trying to improve or optimize infrastructure, and also helping with the management of crops, soil, water application. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we've already been working with the West Colorado Watershed Council to identify challenges and needs within the basin as they relate to water resources. And we kind of started the conversation with those three topics: the healthy watersheds and ecosystems, the vibrant communities, and the productive agriculture. And as we're having these conversations, it really wasn't any surprise that everything sort of bleeds together. Like I said, without those healthy watersheds and ecosystems, it's hard to support our communities and our agricultural producers. And I just have a few bullet points up here, and these aren't all of the things that were mentioned by the council members, but these are just some of the things that were brought up in these discussions. And so I just invite you to take a look at these and think about, do these apply to you? Is there anything else that keeps you up at night when you think about water locally? And in a moment, with those of you that are here in the room, we'll actually break up and we'll have some discussions so that we can talk about this a little bit more. And again, for those of you that are joining us online, you'll have the opportunity to provide feedback through the survey, or you can also email directly. But first, I do want to talk about how you all can stay engaged throughout the process. So as I mentioned, we're holding meetings like this across all 11 basins across the state. We'll finish those up actually next week. And then our team will spend the winter writing. So we'll take information that you've provided in these meetings and we'll get to work on that. And our plan is to have what we consider to be a final draft by next summer, but we'll put that out for public comment and see if you all agree that we do have a final draft. And then we will have this publication ready by December of 2026. And I'll put these QR codes up at the end of the presentation, but I just want to talk about, you can sign up for email updates. So if you would like to be pinged next summer when it's that public comment period, we'll send you an email. We'll also email you when the final publication is ready. I promise we will not bombard you with a lot of other emails. I can't imagine sending out more than maybe 4 or 5 emails total. So don't be shy to sign up for that. And if you would like to get involved with water issues at a more local level, I really encourage you to check out our watershed councils. They meet quarterly. And so if you visit the page, You'll find out more about your local watershed and when the next one will occur and how you can join that meeting. This will also be up at the end of the presentation. Again, those of you here in person, I really hope that you'll stay to have a conversation with us. You're welcome to also take the survey as well. And those of you online, I do hope that you'll take the time to take the survey. It should only take you 5, maybe 10 minutes max. And for those of you staying in the room, I just want to let you know a couple of things, I guess, kind of the rules of engagement. When we start discussing, if you could just limit your initial comments to just a couple of minutes so that we make sure everyone feels they have the opportunity to speak and be heard. And I also just want to let you know that we will be recording these. If you've ever had to facilitate a conversation and take notes at the same time, it's really hard to do. Recording these will allow us to go back to the office and be able to look at the transcript and make sure that we don't miss any of the important comments that you all provide to us. And then the last thing that I just want to ask of you all is to just please be kind to each other. You know, water is important to all of us. You wouldn't be here this evening if it wasn't. There's a lot of different perspectives and opinions on water and why it's important. So I just ask that we respect each other and our thoughts. So with that, I want to thank everyone here in the room and online. These QR codes, I will leave these up. And then we'll just get organized here for our next section. We'll spend about 45 minutes to an hour just having a conversation with you all. So thank you. So let's see.